focus. Ideate, innovate, enable. Decoding the Budget, presented by Grant Thornton.
Hello and welcome to this special conversation. We are calling it Decoding the Budget, and we are going to be doing that over the next half hour with the top team at Grant Thornton Bharat. We have 7 partners with us. We have you completely covered across most of the major important sectors on which we heard announcements from the Finance Minister. Let me quickly introduce our panel. Saket Mehra, National Leader, Automotive Practice. Vivek Iyer, Financial Services Risk Leader. Ramendra Verma, Leader, Public Sector Consulting. Bhanu, Prakash, Kalmath SJ, Leader, Healthcare and Life Sciences. Viswanath P, Consulting Expert, Consumer Sector. Akshay Garkel, National Leader, Cyber. And Vishal Agarwal, Partner, Tax. Thank you, gentlemen, very much for taking out the time and joining us for this discussion. I do want to start with, of course, the headline announcement on, public spending, CapEx, the public-private partnerships that the Finance Minister alluded to. So, Ramendra Verma, let me come to you. What is your first take on the budget and on the direction and the thrust that the government is really taking?
So thanks, Surabhi. I look at it from the 3 points of view. I think government is continuing the thrust on the infrastructure growth. During the pandemic, that was the only avenue to make sure that we have enough jobs, enough growth in the country. So that's getting continued, and in fact, it's growing, which is positive. The second side, what the government is possibly doing is letting a lot of, due to the income tax rebate, getting a lot of consumption getting spurred now. And the third side is the social benefits, and that human face is already there. I think there has been a lot of restructuring around it, where the government is moving from, probably in one area to the other area to spur growth. So, for example, the women self-help groups aligned on the lines of FPOs. So that's a very positive step. Then on the healthcare, I think a lot of 1.57 new nursing colleges getting opened. The education, which is the training of teachers, and 38,800 teachers getting for the 740 Eklavya schools, which is a very positive steps. Then on the tourism side, I think the 50 remote centers focusing more on the domestic tourist is a fundamental shift. And we have been seeing a couple of examples in the last 1 year where the focus has been on the domestic tourism, where Mahakal and Banaras, these are getting added to the list, and where there is a lot of tourist footfall happening. So these are some of those steps which the government is taking, looking very positive, looking, introducing Agriculture Accelerator Fund, which is, using the innovation and the startup to our grassroots. I think that's the government is trying to do, and I see it as a very positive step.
Okay, well, tourism, I can imagine, considering the kind of push that we've seen and the kind of buzz over the pandemic and even beyond, and we know what's happening in that part of the economy where the consumer really wants to go out and travel, which actually brings me to the next aspect, the whole consumption push that we're speaking of. So, Vishwanath, come in on this. What is your read-through? Of course, headline level, there is a new tax regime which has been now sweetened considerably. There's the thrust on tourism that was just mentioned. How much will this actually spur consumption at the end, and which perhaps could be the biggest beneficiaries?
Right. Thanks, Surabhi. You're right. India and this government has always believed growing through investments. In a country like India, the multiplier that we see from CapEx is 4x in the economic activity. A lot of investments are going into the rural, the farmers in the tier 2, tier 3 towns. So that is going to spur consumption, augurs well for FMCG companies. It augurs well for farmer income, both from a cost perspective, because we heard the government setting up a 20 lakh crore credit fund for animal husbandry, dairy and fisheries. We heard them setting up fund for increasing horticulture. So all these are going to reduce the cost of the farmer. And on the revenue side, we're going to see the digital transformation that the government talked about to ensure that the farmers are able to realize adequate prices. So farmer income is going to increase. That's going to be pocket where consumerism will grow in India. And also the whole chunk of people who are earning up to 10 lakhs per year, the new tax regime is going to give them anywhere between 3 to 5% incremental cash in their hand, right? Now, one can argue that it's not much, but I guess it's the government telling that I have offset inflation for you. So you are left with the same purchasing power. We're going to see expenditure coming from that angle. And tourism is interesting because when you push tourism, it's not just about travel. People eat out, people buy handicrafts, local products, people buy accessories and fashion when they travel, right? So pushing tourism through these 50 destinations is going to really result in a huge multiplier effect for these consumption-led sectors. Government has also promoted exports. We see reduction in duties for mobile parts. Definitely the focus is Make in India. Exports of electronics is already growing by 55%. And the last big thing is the duty reduction for lab-grown diamonds. That is projected to be a 40,000 crore business for India alone. So a lot of consumer-led industry is going to benefit from these regulations.
Okay, absolutely agree with you over there. Tourism indeed does have that multiplier effect, and perhaps it's going to be good for not just the hospitality sector, but several other linked sectors, as you mentioned. So thank you for those very important points. Saket, let's come to the green agenda, because that was a very strong message that the finance minister put out there, specifically for not just, of course, the hydrogen mission is one aspect, but she again referred to EVs. Quite a few incentives perhaps coming the way, whether it's lithium-ion batteries, some of the sort of other measures, the viability gap funding that she referred to as well. So put it together for us to the automotive sector, specifically when you're looking at green mobility, what kind of a kicker does this budget provide?
Sure, Surbhi. So I think if you look at from a point of view of the green economy, which was so much being talked about in the Honorable Finance Minister's speech. Worldwide, if we look at vehicle pollution, for example, it almost contributes 24% to the CO2 emissions. And globally, all the countries are attempting to kind of arrest these kind of emissions. In this direction, the green hydrogen mission, which got approved by the cabinet earlier this year, is a very big move. What we believe is the way it's going to work is that it's going to incentivize the companies who are going to be producing green hydrogen. And it's going to be work in a manner wherein there are going to be schemes and sub-schemes, which typically would be called as strategic interventions, whether it's for funding the companies who are into domestic manufacturing of electrolyzers, which is so critical in manufacturing or producing green hydrogen, or it will also lead to creation of hydrogen hubs across the country in different states and different regions. There is much which has been talked about the kind of investment which the green hydrogen is going to bring into the country to the tune of roughly around $96 billion by 2030. Now, all this put together, what it means for the mobility system in India or the mobility industry. We are one of the fastest moving electric vehicle economy. The economic survey also pointed out that the electric vehicle industry in India is moving or will move at a CAGR of 49% by 2030. Now, there are certain supply side incentives which have been announced by the government. For example, the concessional rate of customs duty, which has been extended on lithium-ion cells, or say, for example, the customs duty, which is now won't be levied on the capital goods, which are being imported for manufacturing lithium-ion cells, will further promote adoption of electric vehicles. If we look at from a policy standpoint, from a FAME policy standpoint, for example, the allocation has got doubled almost in this budget. As on December 2022, there were some 7 lakh electric vehicles which got benefited by the FAME policies which got announced in 2019. So these are the supply side benefits which the budget typically talks about. If I were to talk about the demand side incentives, we just heard my colleague talking about a lot of focus on the agri. For example, the Agriculture Accelerator Fund, which is going to be created. Now, what will happen? This will lead to higher disposable income in the hands of the rural economy, because rural economy is a significant buyer of two-wheelers and the entry-level passenger vehicles. So this would uplift or bring back the sales of the two-wheelers and the passenger car vehicles and the passenger vehicles. So I think this is what it entails more from an electric mobility standpoint.
All right, we'll take a very quick break on that note, but don't go anywhere because we continue talking a lot of the other important sectors as well. Healthcare and, of course, financial services. We'll be back and the conversation will continue in just a moment.
Decoding the Budget, presented by Grant Thornton.
Welcome back. You are with us on this special. We are decoding the budget with the top team at Grant Thornton Bharat. We've been discussing a lot of sectors, including consumer, of course, public policy, auto and EVs. It's now time to take stock of the healthcare space as well and really see the kind of direction and the priorities the budget sets out for fiscal year 24. Bhanu Prakash is with us for exactly that. So, Bhanu, what's your read-through in terms of, as we were discussing in the break, I mean, in terms of just the increase in the total outlay, it's not that much for the health sector this year. So, I mean, are you happy, disappointed, or is it a neutral budget for healthcare?
Sure. Thanks, Urvi. I think I'll put some things in perspective. I think you really see the key theme in this budget for healthcare is inclusive development. That's, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. I think, if you have to put this in context, addressing the healthcare needs of 1.4 billion people is not easy. That too with such a vast geographic spread and with limited pool of doctors and nurses. So I think technology and digital innovations are the key solutions for it. And I must, congratulate government for its effort of what we have seen on COVID app and Sanjeevani platforms. So Budget 2023 goes down the similar path on how we can leverage technology to address the healthcare needs, whether it is setting up of the AI centers or the ICMR labs being opened for research, or the 100 labs being set up for 5G solutions with focus on healthcare. So digital solution is what we are seeing. Digital innovation is what we are seeing from the budget. Now, of course, on the budget outlay for healthcare, there was an expectation for it to be increased from 2% to 3%. We have not seen that movement, but I'm sure I think through the year there are opportunities for government to see how it can be done. I think there is one more element which I want to touch on is which we were thinking that hopefully there will be some announcement in the budget was there is a 30% of the population which is not covered by any insurance. And if you have to address the universal health coverage, I think somewhere we need to do something on how do we build an ecosystem to address that population. And I think the other one was on the innovative duty structure for private healthcare, which there was expectation which is not come in this budget. Coming to the pharma sector, one of the long outstanding request has been met, which is on supporting the R&D. The opening up of the program on R&D and also encouraging private sector to invest in R&D is a welcome move. There was an expectation similar to PLI as RLI. We need to see how it will pan out. I think so overall, a budget which is focused on inclusive development and a further step towards Atmanirbhar Bharat.
So you think the announcement that was made with respect to facilitating more R&D, you think it will indeed turn out to be a bit of a RLI, research-linked incentive scheme, so to speak? Is that the understanding?
I'm hoping that, because I think there's no specific reference, though the budget speak talks about, the private sector will be encouraged to invest in R&D. So, and I'm hoping that there will be some modalities around it, though we need to get the full clarity on it.
Sure, absolutely. We will watch out for that. Okay, now let's turn to financial service. As usual, you'll always find one of the most exciting headlines come from there. And yesterday, at least, it was all about what's happening with the insurance sector with some of the traditional policies. So let me turn to Vivek as well as to Vishal. Both of you look at financial services from your respective lens. Insurance, Vishal, let's just get the elephant out of the room now. What is your read-through? Is it really going to be negative for a lot of insurance companies?
It is certainly. So at least the way the provisions are currently written, a whole bunch of policies that have been issued, at least to HNIs, when they come up for maturity or when they get issued from next year onwards, once they come up for maturity, you don't have the tax holiday on the redemption proceeds anymore, on the maturity proceeds anymore. That's a big hit because a lot of people use that as a tax saving mechanism as well as an investment product. We're moving to a regime where you use insurance for insurance and investments for investments. At least for the HNI category. Thankfully, the limit is high enough, so a lot of the the regular folk will be able to still go with insurance as an investment product.
Okay.
But yes, it's a tough one.
Okay, that was the headline. But let's move beyond that headline, Vivek. What stood out for you from a financial services standpoint?
3 points really. One was the whole innovation focus, which is in terms of leveraging, in terms of the DigiLockers, leveraging AI, 5G, that will foster the whole innovation ecosystem, bring about greater financial inclusion, technology-enabled financial inclusion. Reading the economic survey together with the budget got, personally in terms of me, very excited about the whole opportunity that innovation brings in, and that focus, especially through the AI-linked AI centers, and in terms of those aspects really excited me from that standpoint, specifically from an innovation perspective. Second was the whole regulatory cooperation that the whole budget kind of insisted upon in terms of where different regulators need to talk together, because most of the financial stability risks actually emanated from the cracks that actually existed between the ecosystem. Facilitating that interregulatory cooperation is something that stood out significantly. And driving that whole agenda, simplification of overall compliances, and those pieces really in terms of a great push personally in that direction. And third was obviously Gift City, which had literally in terms of 2 subcomponents for me personally. One was the simplification of procedures, operational efficiencies within Gift. And the second was in terms of creating the whole, recognizing the whole offshore derivative instrument, which basically in terms of deepens the opportunity and the space, setting up of an EXIM subsidiary in Gift City to facilitate the whole export refinancing, especially at a point in time when globally exports are kind of going down, and then to kind of contribute and work through the international center. So these 3 initiatives, honestly, in terms of, stood out.
Okay, I want to sort of, just go a little deeper into ODIs, the overseas derivative instruments, because they were, sort of tainted with a black brush a couple of years ago. And the whole move was to sort of move away from that regime. So how do you see these new developments of facilitating more ODIs from GIFT? What do you see happening? Do you see takers? What kind of products?
So we see a lot of takers, especially because derivatives are a very effective hedging instrument. The whole problem was that in the past was that people looked at derivatives as a revenue opportunity. It's not really a revenue opportunity. It's for the purpose of actually determining, fixing your costs. And that derivative serves as a very effective hedging instrument. As we grow, as corporates go global from India, there's going to be a need for very significant and strong hedging instruments, and creating those kind of products through the Gift City offers that great opportunity. So, and especially in terms of given the fact that now we can actually write those products from Gift City, so that's a great initiative, at least from that perspective.
So it's a space to watch, I think, in the coming months. Vishal, any more thoughts from a FS standpoint? Anything else that stood out for you?
Sure. Just to continue on the Gift City point, on the ODIs, that's also important because it helps deepen that segment. I think while we've done a lot of stuff along the regulatory as well as tax front to make it more interesting for people, we still need a lot more depth. And the ODIs, the P-Note, the access products always brought a lot of depth, but they had their own challenges, which is why there were some curbs around them. The idea of expanding that in the Gift City space should hopefully get us over that hump soon. And you're meeting investor expectations by saying that the flow-throughs will not suffer taxes and will not have compliances, and that's a big thing that that helps investors look at that product. The other thing in the Gift City was also acquisition financing.
But is that clear? Sorry, since you brought this up, and it always evokes memories of all the the hullabaloo over taxation of these instruments. So is it clear that if these ODIs are being issued from Gift City, the end holder of the ODI will not be subject to tax?
That's right. See, a lot of the hullabaloo also happens because, there was never a tax law that clearly articulates what is expected to happen. What they've done now is they've at least clearly said that distributions will not suffer tax. And therefore, with that clarity comes a lot of confidence in being able to run those products and issue those products and write those products.
Okay. Got that. So, Akshay, that brings us to, again, one of the most hottest aspects in terms of government policy, and that's really the whole digital thrust. Lots of references during the speech. There's the whole movement towards, providing a digital linkage even to agriculture, facilitating farmers, and there's a DigiLocker. So you tell us, what are the most important things that we should keep in mind?
Yeah. So really, the 4 points that came out very evident. One was essentially the infusion of almost about 16,000 crores in the tech sector, and which was about 2,000 crores higher than last year, right? Where we the government essentially is going to set up artificial intelligence-based center of excellence. There are about 3 or 4 in consideration. About 100 5G labs, for the usage of looking at, healthcare, pharma, also education, and so on and so forth. Second is the agriculture side that you mentioned, the digital public, infrastructure for agriculture, where essentially, an open platform which will essentially have a fair bit of collaboration from various technology platforms coming in to kind of contribute to farmland records, crop information, also looking at, how do you kind of use ethical usage of drones for, measuring the land records and also providing information which will essentially bring up and double the income of farmers, and also, as Honorable Prime Minister essentially wants a doubling of income of people below the poverty line. And that again has a superimposition to the usage. Third is a digital locker, where a risk-based KYC as a process essentially was introduced. And that's a very, very welcome point that essentially we welcome.
Risk-based KYC, can you just elaborate and explain
so
that?
It's more about, depending on the kind of activity that I need to sign up for, is what I'm going to basically give in terms of the information that I'm going to share.
Okay.
So, for example, do I really need to share my Aadhaar card, PAN card, biometric, and all of that versus just an Aadhaar card for a simple activity?
Right.
Right. So that's the risk-based KYC. And then the second essentially was the entity-based, locker, DigiLocker, which now essentially will have a 2.0 as a version. And that 2.0 as a version essentially will also will have the ability to kind of, carry, your land records. Charitable trust would have, essentially certain records that can be stored on DigiLocker and so on and so forth.
Okay.
And last but not the least, essentially looking at certain aspects around, the Pradhan Mantri Yojana for the learning on emphasis with AI, ML. So as we essentially talk about, made in India, so AI in India and AI for India. So these are the aspects that would get covered.
So digital, definitely a very important pillar for the economy and for India. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, and thanks to all the other panelists as well for joining in virtually online. We are talking digital, right? But fantastic conversation. Thank you for all the details and for helping us decode and get a little more granular about various aspects of Budget 2023. Thank you, viewers, for watching.
Decoding the Budget, presented by Grant Thornton. Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.